Hello Year 4, it's Miss Martin here. I hope you're all doing well at home and staying safe. So in this maths video, we'll be focusing on two lessons. It's your lesson for Wednesday and Thursday. We are going to be rounding decimals with one decimal placed to the nearest whole number. And we are also going to be writing 1/4, 1/2 and 3/4 as decimals. In order to be successful, we need to be able to round decimals up and down. We need to know what one decimal place is. We need to identify the nearest whole number to a decimal. We need to write 1/4 as a decimal, 1/2 as a decimal, and 3/4 as a decimal. So when we are rounding to one decimal place, we are focusing on the first number after the decimal point. So here my example is 5.9, got my 5 in the ones column and my 9 in the tenths column. I can see the 9 is the first number after the decimal point. So I'll be focusing on rounding my number 9. So just so you can understand what it means by one decimal place, can you have a go at underlining the first decimal place for these three examples, please? Pause the screen to have a go. Okay, so for 7.2, I can see the 2 is the number after the decimal point, my first number, so I'm underlining my 2. 15.7, and my 7 is the number after the decimal point, underlining my 7, and 8.0, and my 0 is my number after my decimal point, so I'm underlining my 0. So these would be the numbers you would focus on rounding in this session. Okay, a quick recap of rounding. So when we round, we need to focus on these numbers. So if my number is 1, 2, 3, or 4, we are rounding down. So for example here, 34 would round down to 30. 52 would round down to 50. 21 would round down to 20. 63 would round down to 60. If my number is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we round up. Like here, 87 rounds up to 90. 35 rounds up to 40, 19 rounds up to 20, and 46 rounds up to 50. I think you should all be very confident with this because we did this at the start of year 4, and I'm pretty sure me and Miss Ryan were happy with the work you did on rounding, so I think you should be able to round quite easily. Okay, when rounding decimals with one decimal place, we are looking at the number after the decimal point and deciding if that decimal will round up or round down to the nearest whole number. So I've got an example here, which is 8.2. Firstly, we need to identify the whole number in the decimal, and we can see that the 8 is the whole number. 0.2 is not a whole number, but the 8 is a whole number. So this means that 8.2 is in between 8, and I've placed 8 on my number line, and we know the number after 8 is a 9. Now, in between my number line, I've got to think, where would 8.2 go? Now use your knowledge of the tenths we did last week and our intervals we did last week to help you. But where would 8.2 go on my number line? Have a good think. Okay, so if this is 8, after 8 would come 8.1, and after 8.1 would come 8.2. Because this is 1/10, this is one whole, and it's been split into 10 different tenths, and 8.2 would go here. Now, thinking about rounding, is my 8.2 closer to 8 or closer to 9? Now I can clearly see 8.2 is closer to 8, so I would round down. We can also use our knowledge of rounding because we know 2, focusing on our 2, would round down. Going back to this slide, we can see the 2 in our tenths column would round down, and it would go to the 8. Now, using that same technique, I'm going to pause the screen and have a go at rounding these 3 decimals. Off you go. Okay, so our first example, I can see my whole number is the 5, So straight away I'm going to put a 5 on my number line. And then I think, what number comes after 5? And I know after 5 comes 6. So I know 6 is going to go here. Now, looking at my tenths number, we are rounding the number after the decimal point. I can see it's 7. Now, does 7 round up or round down? 7 rounds up. Very good. So I know straight away I'm going to go up. So let's see, where would 5.7 go on this number line? Here's 5, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, 5.6, 5.7 would go here. And like we said before, 5.7 rounds up, and we know it would round up to 6. So 6 is the nearest whole number to 5.7. Next one, 11.4. I can see my whole number is 11. So I would write 11 on my number line. After 11 comes 12. And then we are rounding the number after the decimal point, which is 4. Would 4 round up or round down? Have a think. 4 rounds down. So let's see where 11.4 would go on our number line. 11.1, 11.2, 11.3, 11.4. And like we said, 11.4 rounds down. So the nearest whole number to 11.4 is 11. And finally, 83.8. I can see my whole number is 83. So I'm going to write 83 on my number line. And after 83 comes 84. And I'm looking at the decimal, which is 8. Now let's think, does 8 round up or does 8 round down? Now 8 we know is a larger number, so it rounds up. Now let's think, where will 83.8 go on our number line? 83, 83.1, 83.2, 83.3, 83.4, 83.5, 83.6, 83.7, 83.8. Go here. And I can clearly see 83.8 is closer to 84. And like we said before, 83.8 rounds up. So the nearest whole number would be 84. Well done if you got all of those correct. Okay, and our second LO for the lesson was understanding quarter, 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4 as a decimal. Now, when understanding quarters, a half, and 3/4 as a decimal, we must focus on our 100 square. Now we know our hundredths are out of 100. So if I have 100 out of 100, I know that is the same as 1 whole. However, if I was to cut my 100 square in half, I know half of 100 is 50. So if I crossed out 50, I would be left with just half of my 100 square. So that means I would only have 50 out of 100. And that is the same as 1/2 because I've got rid of 1 whole half and I only have 50 left. Now that is simply, our decimal will simply just be 0.50 because I've only got 50 left out of my 100. Now, to focus on 1/4, I know a quarter is when I take a half and I half that again. So if I took my 50 and I cut that in half, I know half of 50 is 25. So if I crossed out 25, and I'm only left with just this small section here, 25 here, that means I've only got 25 boxes out of 100. And very similar to 1/2, my decimal would simply be 0.25. Okay, and finally, 3/4. Now I know 3/4 up here is when I take my quarter, another quarter, and another quarter. So I've got more than just 1/2. I have now got 1/2 plus 1/4, which makes 3/4. Now if I take my 50 and I take my 25 and I add them together, 50 add 25, that is going to equal 75. And just how done before, my decimal point would simply be 0.75. I want you to have a go at just using your number, your 100 square, to create and draw your own versions of 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4, so I can see you understand what they would look like on 100 square and also what they'll look like as a decimal and a fraction. So just a quick recap, if I have 1/2, it's the same as 0.5 or 0.50. If I have 1/4, it's the same as 0.25. If I have 3/4, that is the same as 0.75. So for that, I just want you to have a go at drawing your own 100 square, crossing out either 50, 25, or 75 to work out what your 1/2, 1/4, or 3/4 would look like. So I hope this video has helped you. That is the end of your topic of decimals. You've all worked extremely hard. I've loved seeing all the work you're doing. Please make sure you send any more work over to the Year 4 email address. Thank you for watching this video. Goodbye.